Hi, a couple of years ago I started getting into D&D. As my passion for D&D grew, so did my collection of minis, and like many others out there, I now have boxes of shame. Legions of unpainted minis. Now this is my underdog story. This is me painting every single one of my miniatures.
Hi guys and gals out there, I hope you're having a good old time. So last week I painted up one of my largest miniatures, the Gore Maw, and as a contrast to that I figured I would paint one of my smallest minis this week, the Gazer and Spectator from Wizkids Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures line. Now the Spectator came with some very badly placed sort of flasher mode lines. You actually can see perhaps that on his eyes, on the stalks, they go right across them. So, and the smaller ones, I guess these are the Gazers, they were actually fine. They were just some small tidbits there. But I needed to basically bring out all of the tools of arsenal. So I brought out my hobby knife, but also later on you'll see that I actually use files and whatnot, just to try to sort of smoothen out that surface, which is supposed to be as smooth as an eyeball. Eventually, I figured after doing a lot of filing and whatnot, I also noticed that the actual primer on the miniatures, the Spectator more than the Gazers, was a little bit gloppy, you know what I mean? So I decided, you know what, it's not time to paint yet. I essentially took out a small tub and I have put a little bit of green natural detergent. We call it såpa in Sweden. So basically a little bit of detergent, and I let the miniatures soak in it during the night. This will make it possible for me to actually remove the primer. So I covered the actual transparent bits with masking tape, and yeah, the day after I gave all of the miniatures a zenithal priming. I'm going to start out with some Warlock Purple from Army Painter, and I'm also going to use some Glaze Medium. I'm doing about 50-50 of these. Just going to try to do actually a two-tone gradient on all of the miniatures, because I wanted them, because if you look at the art, both of them look quite green, and I don't know, I wanted to make them a little bit more personal, if you will. So I'm going in here with this sort of magenta purple and being quite sloppy with it, and I'm defining sort of the top part to be magenta. And then as a complementary, I'm going to go with something that's called Royal Cloak from Army Painter, which is sort of a green-blue tint. Same thing there, 50-50 paint and medium. And then remember, remove most of the moisture from your brush before starting to paint this. Otherwise it will sort of gloop on almost like a wash. So here I'm just trying to sort of define the bottom part, which is supposed to be this nice green-blue part, cyan part, I guess. And then eventually I'm getting into the place where sort of these colors meet, and I'm just trying to get a nice smooth blend in between them. So that's what it looks like, if you can even see anything. Now for the for the Spectator, I figured I would do a similar thing, but in a different color scheme. So I started off with Army Painter's Jungle Green. Started painting this, and I noticed, you know what? It doesn't really take. So I remembered that, of course, I need a much darker color. So I went in with Angel Green from Army Painter instead, because we have to remember these paints are very, very translucent. So what I want is more what the end result was when I took a much darker color but painted it over a white undercoating. So here I'm just sort of trying to define which parts I want to be in this green color. It's green with a hint, it's almost like emerald green, I would say. It's got hints of blue in there, I think. And then as a complementary color, I took some think this is called something red orange or something like that from Vallejo. But essentially I wanted something to make it really pop, contrast the other color. And here you can see I'm not being particularly clean with the colors on the eye. I'll come back and fix that. What I really am after here is just to define sort of one orange area and one green area, so that I can fully sort of understand where I want the miniature to, or how I want it to look, basically, and where I want the color transitions to be. Now, this, I'm urging you, have patience here. This took quite a long time. I'm using some of that Warlock purple on the tongue as well, but I think I at this point figured that, you know what, it's not enough. So I'm going in with some pure red, just to sort of get a little bit more pop on that tongue. And I'm just sort of putting in first base coats. Here I'm taking a little bit of off-white, and I think this is actually not a glaze, it's the pure paint diluted slightly with some water, just to sort of try to redefine the eyes, or the eyeballs. I'm doing the same thing on the small gazers. Oh my god, these the eyeballs here are like 99% of the body, but still it was so small, and I'm even doing it on the actual stalks, just trying to sort of dot in something that you could perceive as, yeah, that's the eyeball. But it's not as difficult as it seems, but you have to have a steady hand at this point. And I can see that my camera isn't even picking up the actual gazers. They're that small. Okay, so for the gazers, I figured it was time to remove this masking tape. And I used just normal sort of, I guess it's painter's masking tape. I cleaned up the transparent bit because there were some glue leftovers here and there, but it looked pretty okay, I would say. So with this, I'm coming in with some pink, and I'm actually not diluting this with any medium. I'm using it straight on. I'm gonna try to define the gums. And here, again, I'm not particularly careful if I'm painting over the teeth or not. That's fine. I'm just trying to sort of define the line where the gum meets the rest of the flesh, so to speak. The teeth we'll worry about now. So using skeleton bone, I come in and I wanted to, actually there were some, I'm not sure, protrusions, horns, some sort of parts that looked like they would be much more sort of hard bone types on the Spectator. So I just wanted to sort of sketch those in so that I didn't forget them, coming in just with the normal skeleton bone. But also, of course, the teeth, trying to sort of put in the darkest color of the teeth, and at this point I decided that that would be skeleton bone. We're gonna come in and make the teeth even brighter later on, but starting with the darkest one, because that's the one I can be the most sort of liberal with. And then here I think I've actually switched colors on it. Yeah, here I went in with some off-white just to sort of put in at the very top of the teeth. So at this point I wanted to start defining sort of the edge of the eye, which should be sort of red, because if they are similar to like most eyes, then there's fleshy bits inside there that sort of keeps the eye in check. So I just did that quite sloppily, so I had to come in and redefine sort of the edges with some off-white again. But it was nice. You do a little bit of back and forth, and finally you sort of get a nice red or pinkish edge of the eyes. So now it's time to remove the masking tape from the Spectator. It was quite these tapes are good because they come off quite easy, but man, they really stick on there pretty good. So I glued all of the minis to their respective bases. I didn't particularly like how the transparent base went on the actual the actual sort of black base. So I just decided to try out some Vallejo texture paste. This is supposed to be some sort of I guess not asphalt, but some sort of more gravelly type, and I'm just sort of putting it in there and trying to make it look semi-organic, and also I'm making sure to cover the bottom part of the transparent holder, which was what I didn't really like. And then you can use your fingers just to wipe off the edge so you have that nice black rim at the end. Now, once the eyes had dried, I actually came in with a pen, micron pen, just to sort of define these eyes. They actually have crosses as eyes, as their main eye, and then just like a line for their stalk eyes, these gazers. Here I had a little bit of camera failure, but I pretty much went in and painted the actual eye on the Spectator. Sorry for that. So the base had at this point dried, so I just went in with some Agrax Earthshade just to try to get a little bit more definition and shadow and make it look a little bit more grimy. I'm doing this on all of these. I'm finding that either contrast paints, which I've just started dabbing around with, or washes work very well for this actually. So at this point I am using a little bit of glaze medium and a little bit of wash from Army Painter, and this is the purple wash. I diluted it specifically because I didn't want as much color. I'm just coming in on the small gazers just to sort of try to get a little bit more definition on the shadowy areas, but not color it too much. I'm really just after a little bit of a sort of a nice tone. Here I'm using the red tone and I'm doing the similar thing. I'm diluting it with 50-50 glaze medium because I don't want a lot of color, I just want some. Here I'm coming in and I'm trying to sort of I guess redefine the edges of all of the fleshy parts, so that means the eyes, but will also include the tongue. So all of these stalks, I'm actually pretty much just covering, making sure that I get where the eye meets sort of the green flesh, because that's where I want it the most. Now, one trick that you can do, and I did this on the Gormo as well, is that once you have this, if you work fairly quickly, what you can do is actually come in with a Q-tip and just wipe off the top of what you don't want. So here I'm just sort of trying to remove this red wash from where the actual pupil is on the eye stalks, just to sort of make it a little bit more whiter there. And this is what we have so far. So with the actual base, I'm just going to come in with some Terminus Stone dry brushing. This is Citadel paint. I think I got it as part of a set, so I figured we might as well use it when it comes to these sort of things. Otherwise, I'm not particularly fond of having specific dry brush paints. But yeah, it does a pretty good job of sort of dry brushing stone and wood and stuff. And then it was just pretty much just paint the rim black. Now at this point I've actually done a varnish on them. What I didn't like with the varnish, as I did a matte varnish, was that the transparent bits got all foggy and whatnot. So I'm coming back in with just a brush and some gloss varnish on the actual transparent bits, which makes them become much more, well, clear and transparent again. And also I'm coming in with some gloss varnish on the eyes, on the mouth, and the tongue on the Spectator. I usually like it when you have when you see matte parts and really glossy parts on a miniature. It gives it life. So you shouldn't be shy when putting on, I feel, gloss varnish. It gives it a nice sort of dynamic, I think. And that pretty much wraps it up. So I think it's time to have a look at the final result. Alright, guys and gals out there, what did you think about this week's paint job? I thought it was quite interesting to do a two-tone blend using some glaze medium, and I really like how these came out. I feel like they're quite nice result, and they're definitely mine. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you like these videos that I put out every week. Subscribing, liking or disliking means a lot to the channel, so please do that. And with that, I wish you a great day. Toodaloo.